Okay, welcome to JCA Connect. In the previous class, we were discussing about some of the experiments. Uh, we completed the pH experiment, we completed the turbidity, we completed the electrical conductivity. So, in all these uh, experiments, all three experiments, of course, these are all related to uh, the instrumental uh, measurements. So, you have to remember first in all first one, that is uh, significance. What will be the significance of the experiment? Then calibration. In all these three experiments, you have to calibrate the equipment first. Okay. Then procedure, how to do it. Then how to uh, give the results. Give the results. So these all things you have to remember in all these three experiments, especially pH, conductivity, and turbidity. Okay. So then now we'll move on to the hardness experiment. So this you already did in your first semester by using a titration method. By using the same method or same principle, we will follow here. Okay. So then, um, what exactly this hardness is? Okay. So when normally when you are speaking about the water quality, we speak about the hard water and the soft water. So when you say it is hard water, so when you say it is the hard water. So in general, if um, with the soap, with the interaction of the soap, if it is not giving the lather or the foam, okay, then we can call it as a hard water. So if it is giving the foam or the lather, so then it is the soft water. Then why this hard water is not giving the foam, or why it is not giving the um, lather? What causes, or which ions are responsible for causing the hardness? Okay. See, the ions that are responsible are calcium, magnesium, CO3, HCO3. Okay, these four are main causes of uh, hard water. Okay, see carbonates. This we can call it as carbonates, and this we can call it as bicarbonates. So carbonates of calcium and magnesium, bicarbonates of calcium and magnesium. So carbonates of calcium and magnesium, and bicarbonates of calcium and magnesium. Okay, carbonates, bicarbonates of calcium and magnesium. These are positive ions. Okay, these are negative ions. See, whichever these things are there, these are all negative ions. So negative means it is anions. These are cat ions. Okay. See, again, in overall classifications, we have two types of hardness. One is types of hardness. Types of One is temporary, and one more is permanent. So then which ions are responsible for temporary hardness? So the temporary hardness will list out, that is CO3, that is only CO3, and HCO3 of Ca plus and Mg plus. Okay, permanents, nitrates, NO3, sulfates and phosphates, PO4 minus of Ca plus and Mg plus. Okay, if nitrates are there, so this will list out here. CO3 of CO3, HCO3 of Ca plus and Mg plus. Then NO3, PO4, then SO4, okay, of Ca plus and Mg plus. So if calcium nitrate is there, calcium phosphate is there, calcium sulfate is there, then it is causing permanent hardness. Then it is temporary hardness. So then, how exactly you are removing this temporary hardness? So temporary hardness can be removed with the help of the boiling technique. Boiling. This permanent hardness can be removed by some of the special equipment called, okay, zeolite process. Zeolite and lime process. The permanent hardness can be removed. Even the permanent hardness can be removed with the help of the reverse osmosis also. Okay, with help of the RO, that is reverse osmosis also. Okay. See what happens if you drink the hard water. Okay. As a human health of point of view is concerned, okay. See, if we have a temporary hardness, if we have a temporary hardness, means carbonates, bicarbonates, we don't have any problem. Okay, even if the calcium is also there, no problem, because calcium is required for our bones. Okay, as the muscular developments, it requires um, a, is a most important component, this calcium. So magnesium up to some extent it is required, not full. So magnesium up to some extent it is required. Okay, but when it comes to the permanent hardness is concerned, okay, if nitrates are there, okay, if phosphates are there, if sulfates are there, so then definitely it is going to give a problem. So if nitrates are there, assume that if nitrates are there, you already know one of the very important disease called blue baby disease. So that we can call it as the methanoglobinoanemia. Okay, blue baby disease is caused by the nitrates. Okay, so definitely it is going to affect the infants, especially infants. It is going to affect. Okay, so then even phosphates, if it is there, so it is definitely giving the problem to your the liver based diseases. Then sulfates also it is related to the kidney aspects. Okay, then it is very much important to remove the permanent hardness rather than the temporary hardness. So that is also hardness, but still a care should be taken to remove the permanent hardness. Okay. See, of course, hardness is the measure of the ability of the water to cause the precipitation of insoluble calcium and magnesium salts of higher facets from soap solutions. The principle of hardness causing the cations are the calcium and magnesium. The hardness can be classified into two types: temporary hardness and permanent hardness. Temporary hardness is due to the presence of bicarbonates of calcium and magnesium. Permanent hardness is due to the carbonate. Hardness is caused the presence of sulfates, chlorides, nitrates of the calcium and magnesium. Okay, even the Cl, if it is there, Along with this, even Cl is there. Okay, so nitrates, phosphates, sulfates, then chlorides of calcium and magnesium are responsible for causing the permanent hardness. Okay, so then hardness of the water is important in determining the suitability of water for domestic as well as the industrial uses. So the relative amounts of calcium and magnesium hardness, carbonate and non-carbonate hardness presence in water are the factors while determining the most economical type of softening process. Okay, so determination of hardness serves as a basis for routine control of softening processes. Assuming that if you are using, so one is health aspect, so that we already discussed, health concern we already discussed. So one more is the quantity of water usage for domestic purpose, domestic as well as the industrial purpose. See, the consumption will be always it is higher in the higher side. See, if you think that, say if it is giving foam in interaction with the soap, so normally you'll use less water. Suppose if you are not, if it is not giving any foam or if it is not giving any lather, so then normally you will use more water. Normally you will use more water. The reason behind it is not giving the foam, so always the usage will be higher. Even the industrial applications, even during the industrial applications, what will happen is that even during the industrial applications, what will happen is that, see, whatever this calcium and magnesium are going to react with the your uh, many of the processes, many of the processes. See, sometimes if chloride is more in water, assuming if chloride is more, then if it is going to react with the calcium, then it is forming calcium chloride. So it is more corrosive. Okay, immediately the reaction will start with the your boilers, containing with the boilers. Okay, in some of the industrial applications like food processing industries play a very important role. If you are using the hard water for some of the industrial applications like food processing, assuming that if hard water is there, so with hard water you know that calcium is there and magnesium is there, carbonates are the bicarbonates are there. If you use soft water, there will not be any reactions in some of the food products. So if target food product is okay, if granules, for example, if you are preparing the Maggi in if they are packing, okay. So assuming that they are using the soft water, there will not be any reactions with other ions. Suppose if you are using the hard water, see what will happen is that these chlorides and nitrates they are going to react with the food products. Then it will form the toxic compounds. It will form the toxic compounds. Okay, this we don't know what exactly, how exactly it is going to happen. Okay, so that is why even in industrial processes, the hard water is in terms of quality as well as the quantity, it play a very important role. Even the industries, if they are using the hard water, the consumption will be always in the higher side. And they said that um, if you are using so for one of the process 100 liters, so if you are using hard water, it will be 150 liters. So almost it is 50% higher than the regular usage. Okay, even in even for domestic purpose in your um, for example, if you are using it for your houses and all those things, so domestic applications. So they predicted that it is 20%, 25% is higher. Okay. So in cities, they will use 25% higher if they um, use the hardware. Okay. So then again, the quantity of 25% means it is a huge amount. That is has to be considered. Then what exactly the principle behind this experiment? Okay. So when EDTA reacts with calcium and magnesium in alkaline conditions, it will form the soluble uh, chelatin complex, that is calcium and magnesium ions, develops wine red color, okay, with erythroid black to indicator alkaline under alkaline conditions. Okay. And in this experiment, always the pH of the solution has to be maintained around 10. If you don't maintain the pH of 10 for the solutions, okay, so you won't get any color. Okay, this color has to be developed. Okay, then method which we are following, that is titration method. Okay, so then which titrant we are using here, very important. So we are using the titrant here, that is EDTA. Okay, we are using the EDTA, that is um, ethylene diamine tetraestic acid. Okay, ethylene diamine tetraestic acid. So if calcium and magnesiums are there, when it is going to react with calcium, it will form this first. It will form this. Calcium is combining with EDT. Again, it is a complex. It is the complex. Then when you add this EBT indicator, this is EBT. You can call it as EBT indicator. So when you add, it will form this complex. M erythroid black T. Okay. And whatever this is there, this one is soluble complex. Okay. And this is insoluble. It is insoluble. That you have to remember. Okay. So of course, this is a titration experiment. Here we are using EDTA as a titrant, and we are taking that in a burette. Okay, we are taking that in a burette, and erythroid black tea as an indicator. Okay, to change the color. Okay, so then if it is soft, so normally the unit of the hardness is milligram per liter as CaCO3. So why we are expressing in terms of CaCO3? We could have expressed in terms of milligram per liter. So as is CaCO3. Why? Because in no normally in most of uh, in our regular use of water, what you are doing, so calcium is always common. Calcium will be there and carbonates will be there. These two ions always it will be there. Okay, HCO3 and NO3, then Cl rarely exist. Okay, even PO4 and SO4 minus, these are rarely exist. Okay, so then it is expressed as milligram per liter as CaCO2. So then if it is in between 0 to 50, then it is a soft water. So if it is 50 to 100, it is moderately hard. So if it is 150 to 300, so then it is a hard water. Then it is a very hard, means it is say greater than 300 milligram per liter as CaCO2. That you have to remember. So if it is a soft water, remember that it is 0 to 50 milligram per liter. So if it is 50 to 100, so it is moderately hard. So if it is 150 to 300, it is the hard water. And greater than 300, it is very hard. Okay. So then normally sample preparation, I already said that the pH has to be maintained at around 10, because if you're not maintaining the pH 10, it is not giving any red color, then you are going to end up with the wrong results. Okay, so then you can take the known ml of sample you can take 100 ml of sample for if you want to determine the hardness of this 100 ml sample, or any known volume you can take known volume. 50 or 100, it does not make any difference. Even if you take 25 ml also, it does not make any difference, because anyhow in the denominator you are dividing with the known amount of sample. So how much ml you will take, that much reading you will get it on the numerator. Okay, so then always minimum 25 ml it is required. You can take 50 ml or 100 ml. Okay, then this is given by the formula, that is total hardness is equal to A into B into 1000 divided by C. So E is ml of titration that is consumed for the sample. For example, titration, if the color is going to develop, how much ml it is consuming. Okay, that is titrant volume. Titrant volume. And C is the ml of sample you took it in sample in the conical flask. So conical flask will be of this shape always. Okay, and the burette will be of always this shape. It will be of it will be of it will be of this. Okay, knob will be there. Okay, here the graduations will be there. Okay, for here also you have graduations will be there. Okay, so then whichever the ml of sample you are taking in conical flask, that is C, then A is the volume it is consumed for doing the end process. So the end color is the, you call it as, that is the wine red. So it is the wine red color. Okay, this wine red color has to wine red to the end point. Wine red to blue. Wine red to blue. Remember that. Okay. And the B, whatever it is there, see this, it has to be calculated with the standardization process. This has to be calculated with the help of the standardization process. Okay, how exactly it has to be calculated? For example, what you have to do is that you have to take 10 ml of calcium carbonate solution. Okay, then titrate it against EDTA. Titrate it against EDTA. Check that how much ml it is consuming. Suppose for 10 ml of CaCO3, if 10 ml if it is consuming 10 ml of CaCO3, if it is consuming 10 ml EDTA, 10 ml EDTA, so then take the ratio, that is 10 by 10, that is equal to 1. Okay, so then B will becomes 1. Suppose if it is giving 20, so 10 ml of EDTA, if it is coming 20, so then 10 by 20, that is 0.5. Okay, that is 0.5. You have to substitute it there. So always it has to be calculated. Do not take that B as 1. Okay, it has to be calculated based on the calculation. Okay, then how exactly it has to be calculated? So for 10 ml, how much EDTA it is going to consume? Or if you take 20 ml, how much 20 ml of CaCO3, then how much ml it is of EDTA it is consuming. Okay, so remember that whenever you are taking the CaCO3, consider 0.01 molar of CaCO3, and here also 0.01 molar of EDTA. So equal molar concentrations of CaCO3 as well as EDT has to be considered. Okay. Normally, if you consider that two concentrations equal, okay, then normally you will get that B as 1. Okay, you should get, okay, that calculation is there. Whenever your classes will start, that time I'll tell. Okay, this is related to the hardness experiment. Then come to the dissolved oxygen. Okay. So that experiment in briefly, it's a titration experiment, and we require the erythrom black tea EDTA followed by calcium carbonate for conducting the experiment. Okay. Then a dissolved oxygen. So this is also titration experiment. Even this can be calculated with the help of with the help of the equipment also, but that is not accurate. With the help of the titration, so you are going to calculate the dissolved oxygen that is present in water. Then the major inputs of the dissolved oxygen to a natural water are from the atmosphere. Okay. And photosynthetic reactions. During photosynthesis, so the carbon dioxide will be taken and oxygen will be released by the plants. Okay. And atmospheric, then how we will get the atmospheric, how exactly you will get the atmosphere from the plants itself. So if flowing water is there, so you'll get a lot of oxygen intake, or it is going to enter into the flowing surface water body. In groundwater, the DO will be very less. It is around 4 to 5. Okay, it will be roughly around 4 to 5. Suppose this same groundwater, if you expose to an atmosphere, definitely it will be increased up to 6 to 7 milligram per liter. Okay, and when it will start moving, surface water or the river, when it will start flowing, what will happen is that layer by layer it will move. Okay, layer by layer it will move with turbulences. So whenever the turbulence is happening, the atmospheric oxygen, if oxygen it will be here also it will be there, so it will directly enter into that surface water body. Okay, then at what extent it is going to enter? Okay, on what factors it is going to depend? So normally one factor that is going to depend, that is temperature, because temperature is inversely proportional to, okay, your DO. It is inversely proportional to your dissolved oxygen penetration. Why? Because if temperature is rising, what will happen is that whatever the oxygen content that is present in water, so that will escape. It will start escape. Suppose if the temperature is decreasing, DO will increase. Then what will be the saturation TO at 0 degree centigrade? Assume that you have 0 degree centigrade, then maximum how much dissolved oxygen you can expect. So dissolved oxygen at DO at 0 degree centigrade, that is 14.2 milligram per liter. It is at 0 degree centigrade. Okay, this we can call a saturation point. At 35 degrees centigrade, how much you can expect? You can expect roughly around 9.5 milligram per liter. So now you can expect what will be the relation here. Okay, what will be the relation? At 35 degrees centigrade, you have so 9.5 milligram per liter, but at 0 degrees centigrade it is 14.2 milligram per liter. Okay, if you see this relation, it means it is inversely proportional. Okay, it is inversely proportional. Okay, then as a 25 degrees centigrade, if it is decreasing slowly, the DO will increase. Okay, and what is the importance of this DO in as a human health point of view, as well as uh, the environmental engineering point of view, as the water quality point of view also, or with respect to the wastewater quality, as well as the pollution status of any river also. The one thing is that um, if you are drinking the water, it should not be too high also. Okay, if it is increasing more than 10 milligram per liter, it is corrosive in nature. Corrosive in nature. So what will happen is that if DO is there, if more DO is there, always I said it is corrosive. How exactly it is corrosive? I'll explain it. So you just throw any iron, metal, Fe in the atmosphere. So in the atmosphere, oxygen it will be there. So it will form Fe2O3. So iron oxide it is going to form. So iron oxide is nothing but it is a corrosion process. Okay, similar things are going to happen in our body also. See, iron it will be there in our body. Okay, even from the food we'll take it. If you take more oxygen, okay, so it is definitely going to affect your bones. Okay, iron is also very important, as well as the oxygen is also very important, and it should not be more also. Okay, so remember that the saturation level of the oxygen is very much important. Okay, that is why the cold water is not that much good for our health, because the cold water, if you see, the DO will be more. Okay, even um, even if the boiling water, that is also is not good for health. Always what doctors will recommend is that boil it and cool it, then you have to drink it. See, if you boiling water, if too much hot water, if you drink it, okay, too much hot water, so DO will be very less. It is not good for health. So minimum we require for body 6 to 7 milligram per liter. Okay, this much if it is there, no problem. Okay. See, if boiling water, if you are drinking more, it will causes the acidity. Okay. So normally you have to boil it and cool it and you have to drink it. So when it is cooling, so whatever the atmospheric oxygen it will be there, it will enter into that. Okay, then the DO will increase. So then once you start boiling process, once you start boiling process, what will happen is that oxygen that is present in it will escape out. It will escape. And if you stop boiling and if you keep it for about 1 hour or 2 hour, so then again the atmospheric oxygen will penetrate into this water. But assuming that at the initial level before starting of the boiling process, assume that if we have 6 milligram per liter of DO is there, 6 milligram per. Once if you start boiling it, it will come back to around 1 to 2 milligram per liter. Then when you stop it and if you keep it for a long time, you won't reback it as 6 milligram per liter. So roughly it will be around 5.5 milligram per liter, because whatever 10% losses always it will be there. See, whatever the actual DO it will be there, you won't get back when you stop boiling it. Okay. So this is the overall significance with respect to the dissolved oxygen, and the extent of pollution is concerned. If the DO is very less, okay, for fish survival, one more, that is fish survival. So you require 6 to 4 to 5 milligram per liter minimum. Okay, then only the fish survive. Fish is going to survive. If the fish is surviving, means it is almost purest water. If the fish is not there, if the fish is not, If the fish is dying, means the water is polluted. That is the first indication. Okay, in many of the ponds or in many of the lakes in Bangalore, in some cases it has happened. I'll take that case study later. Okay, that is due to the decreasing level of the dissolved oxygen. Okay, so that is one. The extent of pollution we are going to measure with respect to dissolved oxygen as a parameter. If the dissolved oxygen, if you understood the properly, so you can um, analyze or you can measure the extent of pollution of the any of the surface water body. Especially in the surface water body, the DO parameter will play a very important role. Okay, so of course in the industrial process also, so dissolved oxygen of the water has to be maintained properly. Okay, so the remaining part, um, that is the method of determination and the principle behind the experiment. I'll explain it in the next class.